Hey guys, my name is Sameer Mohammed, and welcome to AQL ServiceNow CMDB Governance Webinar Best Practices for Maintaining a Healthy CMDB. My name is Sameer Mohammed, and I'm going to be walking you through this CMDB governance session. A little about AQL Technologies. AQL Technologies is a Microsoft Gold partner. We are also ServiceNow Premier partners, work with commercial, federal, nonprofit, government, and semi-government organizations, and run about a team of 200 experts, hundreds of consultations per year, hundreds of ServiceNow deployments, ServiceNow projects for the state 10 years, and with a company history of 15 years. So thank you so much for joining this webinar. I am the ServiceNow practice lead at AQL Technologies. And with that being said, let's go and talk about webinar rules and then get started with it. And if you have any kind of questions, please go ahead and type in the chat. And I'm going to try answering within a couple days and try getting back to you. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda today. So I'm going to talk on the CMDB governance side. And in this session, we're going to go ahead and talk about, so emphasis is going to be on the CMDB governance. And so here are the things that we're going to discuss. First, why do you really need a healthy CMDB? And after that, we will talk about the steps we need to take to set up a successful CMDB from a governance perspective aligned with ServiceNow best practices. So the first step is to basically define a direction, and that's really what we're going to talk about. What does it take? Let's go ahead and define a direction. We need to understand what direction your organization needs to take with the CMDB and why it is essential to have a clear path. The second step is to basically build a team around it. This involves forming our governance team and defining roles and responsibilities. So this is where it goes really heavy on the governance side. The third step is to develop a data model, and this includes having a configuration management plan in place, which I believe is extremely crucial. The fourth step involves operationalizing and maintaining the CMDB, which is by far the most popular way of getting started with the CMDB project, which is basically executing it. And the fifth step is to show the value of a successful CMDB to other business units in your organization. Like they say, if you have it, then you flaunt it. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. The CMDB 3Cs. Let's talk about the 3 key metrics for CMDB Health Dashboard. And this is what the game is all about, achieving these 3 metrics: completeness, correctness, and compliance. So completeness, as you know, this metrics assesses whether all required and recommended fields in the CMDB are populated or not. It answers a question: do you have all the information you need? For example, checking if a CI owner is assigned or if a cost center is specified. Correctness. The correctness metrics will assess whether there are any CIs that are orphan, stale, or duplicates. And that's really what you want to do. You want to make sure there are no orphan, stale, or duplicate CIs. And compliance is basically, this metrics audits the CMDB for its adherence to predefined regulatory requirements, internal governance, and might be certifications as well. It ensures that the data aligns with what the CI are supposed to be doing, such as verifying if workstations have antivirus installed or if production servers have a corresponding QA server. So there could be a lot of different reasoning. So now let's go and talk about why maintain a healthy CMDB. And there are a lot of reasons for that. As you know, ServiceNow is pretty much just, feeding off the CMDB. A good part of the platform is. So CMDB is a key component in your success with the Now platform and a valuable decision support tool for ITSM and many other enterprise processes. It helps improve visibility, control through providing a unified view of all the IT assets and their interrelationships. It will enhance incidents and problem management by having clear insights into the recruiting issues and identify root cause of the incidents with accuracy. Also, it provides better change management, compliance, audit readiness, better security and risk management. If you want to optimize your asset management, and then also improve service management, all of that. And now the Now Assist AI also, the GenAI also feeds off the same CMDB. So it is basically, a big deal to make sure that you basically have a healthy CMDB. So now let's go and talk about plan of action to, a governance plan of action to basically go ahead and set up this trustworthy CMDB. And the first thing is set your direction. That's really what you're doing over here. And there probably might be several different ways that you might have done it. You probably might have your own custom homegrown methodology for doing it. This is something which ServiceNow recommends, and we have customized it for several different clients. So feel free to go ahead and abuse these 5 steps that I'm going to go ahead and show you, and basically to make sure that it fits your company needs. So when you are setting a direction, basically effective configuration management starts with setting clear goals. You need to go ahead and define actionable steps and identify measurable outcomes for the business. And that's really what your setting a direction is. Build a governance team and a governance model around it. So when you build your configuration management team and governance structure and get early buy-in from executives, it helps create credibility and trust in your configuration management process over the long term. Step number 3, design your service data model. So decide which principal configuration item classes you will populate your CMDB with and the services and offerings that depends on these configuration items. Use a recommended data model CSDM if you're already not using it. Operationalize and maintain your CMDB. So implement processes and tools to keep the CMDB accurate and up to date. And finally, establish business integrations. Make sure that, hey, if you have it, then go ahead and show it to your whole organization, the value that they can get out of it, and then start, basically integrating with all the other different business processes. So now let's go ahead and take a look at every single step over here and then talk about what it takes to set it up. Number 1, set your direction. And the thing is that a good CMDB needs clear configuration management goals, objectives, and outcomes. Make sure your configuration management efforts are aligned to your business objectives. That's one of the very big things. The 3 questions you ask yourself are, what do you want to accomplish here? How, which is basically define your approach, constraints, and assumptions. How are you going to do it? Why? What are the business outcomes that CMDB will support? And some of these outcomes might be, hey, proactive change management. Might be to understand the impact of changes proactively, ensuring better preparation and response. Or incident impact understanding, basically to gain insight into the impact of incidents and facilitate faster resolution. Everybody wants that. I think so. Or change traceability, basically to maintain traceability of changes, improving accountability and transparency. Or just business enablement. You just want to transform IT into an enabler of business, supporting strategic objective. So this is basically setting a direction. You don't want to go out there and then try conquering every single use case. So you got to go ahead and set up your direction over here. So, and then finally measure. How do you know when you are on track? That's one of the biggest things. You got to be able to measure it. So now let's go ahead and talk about step number 2, which is build a team and a governance model, and also build a governance team and a governance model. So basically what you're doing over here is that by building a strong governance team and implementing a clear governance model, you can ensure your CMDB remains a reliable tool for managing IT assets and supporting business operations. So, and basically this team that you put together, the configuration control board, it acts as a steering committee to ensure there's always strong value proposition for configuration management efforts. That's really what you need. That's if not, it's a lost cause. I truly think so. Doing so many different CMDB projects at AQL Technologies, I think that it actually adds a lot of value to define a committee which is going to guide the whole of the governance and the CMDB effort. So let's go ahead and talk about, let's address why this is important. A well-defined governance team is basically a backbone of IT. It ensures that all system configurations are accounted for, managed, and maintained in a controlled manner. It also lets you develop rules and guidance for managing the CMDB, which is very, very crucial. This includes who can access data and update data, how changes are approved, and how often the database is reviewed for accuracy. Also, it builds credibility and trust. When stakeholders see a structured approach, they know that we are committed to a long-term stability and efficiency. That's one of the main things. It brings in visibility as well. As part of the governance team setup, make sure that these items are addressed. Number one, build configuration management team. So basically over here, assemble a team with the right skills and define clear roles like, hey, configuration manager, analyst, and we're going to go ahead and talk about these roles more in a second. Establish a governance structure for efficient decision making. Ensure team autonomy. Now, let's not forget that all these skills that you have already included in your team, they already have a daytime job. Do not make this as their second shift. So it's crucial to ensure team autonomy. Having a trustworthy CMDB is not an easy task. Provide the team with dedicated resources and empower them to make decisions without getting stuck in daily support tasks. This autonomy allows the team to focus on long-term goals and innovation. A lot of times, either this could be a part of this team, could be an internal team, or an external partner like us who come and then basically complement your skill set. So basically, and then let's go ahead and define roles and responsibilities. So this is one of the things, the roles and responsibilities there should not be any kind of confusion. Clearly define those roles and responsibilities. Outline the responsibilities and authority levels for each team member to ensure accountability and prevent overlaps. This clarity helps with smooth workflow and decision making, ensuring that everyone knows their specific duties and how they contribute basically to the overall process. And finally, the last but not the least, document every single thing, and make sure roles, responsibilities, and processes are all well documented. And this document that you're going to be creating over here, it's going to be a living, breathing doc, so all your decisions, all changes that you do to your direction, strategy, everything, team roles, everything should be documented over here. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the roles and responsibilities. Now, once again, these roles that you see over here, so it could be a combination of these roles, what you have, or it could be several different roles, or it could be more granular, or you could be just a one single person who's basically taking the CMDB head on and basically enjoying it. I hope you are. But if not, then basically the governance committee has got these roles. Okay, so configuration management executive sponsor. So this is basically role held by a senior exec. So the executive sponsor oversees the implementation of configuration management plan across all departments within the company. Their oversight ensures that the CMDB is integrated into the organization's broader strategic objective. So they bring in a lot of visibility, providing the necessary support and resources to the team. The second role is the configuration management process owner. So the process owner, typically this role is held by a senior manager, and the process owner has ownership and accountability for the strategic development of the configuration management plan. They ensure that the plan is effectively rolled out and adhered to. The configuration manager, now this is an IT manager and is responsible for the day-to-day management of configuration management services. This role involves overseeing the delivery of configuration management services, and it ensures the accurate documentation of the operating procedure. They maintain the integrity and reliability of the CMDB, ensuring that it remains an asset for the organization. Now, there are two more roles, and configuration management system analyst, which is basically an IT analyst, and they perform daily configuration management tasks with minimal direction. So this role basically ensures that the CMDB is up to date and accurately reflects the current state of your IT infrastructure. The role is critical for for the ongoing maintenance and accuracy of CMDB. And finally, last and not the least, it's the configuration management specialist. And this management specialist, this is basically an IT admin who performs the daily configuration management tasks under the direction of CM system analyst. So the configuration management specialist responsibilities include updating the configuration item, managing relationships, ensuring data quality, and this role supports, the system analyst and helps maintain the operational efficiency of CMDB. So a lot of times, if you take a look at it, then a lot of times what happens is the configuration management specialist could be a partner like us. We come in with expertise, we bring in expertise, who basically either oversees as the system analyst or, and along with that, the specialist as well. And usually, the process owner and the configuration manager or the executive sponsor is basically the internal employees of an organization. But in a lot of times I've also seen that, we just come in, there's already a great team who's doing the job. We come in and complement their skill set, take a look at the challenges that they're facing on CMDB, implement best practices, implement governance, help them set up like their whole committee. So we work in various capacities. Our CMDB session over here. So now let's go ahead and talk about, so far we basically talked about, the governance, team. And now let's go ahead and map those roles and responsibilities that they have, with tasks. And this really brings in accountability. And there probably might be, several different ways, to go ahead and achieve this. But but on a high level, if these were the steps, which is basically, for as part of the CMDB project that you have, which is basically process planning and design. This is where you do the whole process planning, configuration identification, configuration control, status accounting and reporting, and verification audit. So let's go ahead and talk about the different steps involved in this, and let's go ahead and wrap and map those tasks with roles and responsibilities. Okay. So implement governance for process planning and design. Over here, I think that this is the step where planning is done, and the outcome of this step is a baseline CMDB is achieved. So if you take a look over here, then the first step is produce configuration management plan. Make sure you have a clearly defined, structured, and documented plan, which is called the configuration management plan. Nice and easy. This needs to be a top priority. I really think so. It usually includes things like purpose, goals and objectives, scope, roadmap, application policies, standards and processes, and roles and responsibilities in it. And so I think that the configuration analyst is consulted to provide input and expertise. The configuration manager is responsible for creating the plan, and the process owner is accountable and plays a role in providing the input. Define CMDB structure. So that's also a very important one. Define your CMDB structure you need to organize configuration items and the relationships to maintain accurate and comprehensive data. So, and the configuration analyst is consulted for this exercise. The configuration manager is responsible for defining the structure. The process owner is accountable and provides the input, so they're responsible and accountable. And now let's go ahead and talk about the next step, which is determine CI selection guidelines. So determine which configuration items to include in the CMDB based on your configuration plan. Okay, so this is also, again, one of the very crucial steps, and the configuration analyst is consulted for their input on the selection criteria. And the configuration manager is responsible for setting these guidelines, and the process owner is accountable and provides input. Now, here's popular CMDB, and this is done, this is discovering, importing, and validating configuration items from various data sources. Emphasis is not going to be on populating CMDB in the session, but as you know, there's a lot of different ways. Import it using Excel, bring in SCCM, bring in discovery, bring in third party, So the configuration analyst is consultant for guidance on data input, and the configuration manager is accountable for ensuring the CMDB is populated correctly. Next step, perform I should be saying next task, perform initial audit. And this is done by verifying the accuracy, completeness, and compliance of all configuration items. And the configuration manager is responsible for conducting the audit. The process owner is usually accountable and responsible, and the configuration analyst is consulted for further expertise. And finally, a baseline CMDB, like you create a baseline of your CMDB by capturing a snapshot of the current state of all the configuration items and the relationships for further reference and comparison. And the configuration manager here is responsible and accountable for establishing the baseline. And the configuration analyst is informed when the baseline is set. So, and once again, you probably might have a lot more tasks defined, as part of your process planning and design, and this is just, ServiceNow's, guidance and, something that we have always used. And again, it needs to be customized depending on the environment that we're working on. So now let's go ahead and take a look at implementing governance for configuration identification. And usually the tasks involved over here, and actually the thing is that in this phase, we systematically identify and categorize configuration items in the CMDB. That's really what's happening in this phase over here. So validate update request. So this is done by ensuring proposed changes to the configuration items in the CMDB meet predefined criteria and are authorized before implementation. So the CI owner is consulted to provide necessary input. The configuration analyst is responsible for validating the update request. And I think the configuration manager is accountable and responsible and ensures the process is followed correctly. Okay. Validate the CI attributes. This is done by checking the accuracy, completeness, and adherence to predefined standards and policies that you might have already defined. So the configuration analyst is responsible for validating the attributes of the configuration items, and the configuration manager is accountable and responsible and oversees this validation process. Okay, and then so review invalid attributes by identifying and correcting CI attributes within the CMDB that do not conform to your defined standards or are incomplete. Okay, so the CI owner is consulted to provide insights on invalid attributes, and the configuration analyst is responsible for reviewing these attributes, and the configuration manager is accountable for ensuring that invalid attributes are properly addressed. Okay, and now finally updating CMDB, which is again by incorporating validated changes, and the CI owner is consulted to ensure accuracy during updates, and the configuration analyst is responsible for making updates to the CMDB. The configuration manager is accountable and responsible for the accuracy and integrity of these updates. And finally, publishing new CI types, in the CMDB by defining its class structure, attributes, relationships, if there's a need, right? And there probably might be need. You don't want to do it unless you have to. So the CI owner is informed about the new CI types. The configuration analyst is responsible for publishing the new CI type, and the configuration manager is accountable for overseeing the publication process. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about implement governance for configuration control. So in this step, manage changes to the configuration items through structure, process, our processes to ensure consistency and compliance. Okay, that's really what's happening in this step. So I think that validate update request, so the validate update request in configuration, control by assessing proposed changes to ensure they adhere, to the policies that you have, the risk, and maintain the CMDB integrity. So the CI owner, I think that is consulted to provide necessary input, and the configuration manager is responsible and accountable for validating the update request. Validate CI attributes. So the validate CI attributes in configuration control by verifying their accuracy, completeness, and compliance, with the standards that you have. So the CI owner is informed about the validation, and the configuration analyst is responsible and accountable for validating the attributes of configuration item. Review invalid attributes. So the CI owner is responsible and accountable, and the configuration analyst is consulted to provide expertise and support during the review process. Update CMDB, which is basically, you got to go ahead and implement changes, implementing the authorized changes, in the CMDB. So the CI owner is informed once the updates are made, and the configuration analyst is responsible and accountable for updating the CMDB. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the next step, next phase in this plan, which is implementing governance for status accounting and reporting. So now let's look into the status accounting and reporting and related tasks. Here we are tracking and basically documenting. So the status accounting and reporting involves, it includes tracking, reporting, documenting the current state and the changes of the configuration items. So I think that's to authorize or reject report request based on the predefined criteria and requirements within the CMDB. So create or update a configuration management report to summarize the current state, changes in compliance state of configuration items within the CMDB. And so basically the thing is that, so while you're doing this, basically doing a lot of, tracking and status checks. So generating a configuration management report, to provide insights into the status change and compliance of configuration items within the CMDB. And so that's basically, responsibility of the analyst, and the configuration manager is going to be responsible as well as accountable. Distribute configuration management report, and that's something which is, informed to the CL owner and to the CI owner, whereas, it's a responsibility of configuration analyst, and it's a responsibility and accountability of configuration manager. So now let's go ahead and take a look at verification and audit team. Okay, and so verification audit means reviewing and validating the configuration items against, the predefined standards and conducting assessments to ensure accuracy, integrity, and compliance. Okay, so approve verification and audit request. So this task does not have any specific responsibility assigned in this matrix, but typically it involves senior stakeholders who approve the need for verification and audit. Execute audit, and this is basically the responsibility of a configuration analyst. Configuration analyst is accountable for executing it as well. And this ensures that the audit process is thorough and aligns with the standards. Reconcile with CMDB. So, and this is by comparing and aligning external data sources or inventories with the configuration items and their attributes, to ensure consistency and accuracy. And this is again a responsibility of configuration analyst and accountability for basically reconciling audit findings within the CMDB. This step ensures that any disciplinaries, any issues, discrepancies found during the audit are addressed. And then determine correct action. So determine correct action, by identifying and implementing measures, to basically go ahead and address any kind of discrepancies, errors, and non-compliances within the CMDB. And so the configuration manager is responsible and accountable for determining the necessary corrective actions. And I think the configuration analyst is informed about the corrective actions to ensure they are aware of the changes needed. Okay, and then initiate corrective CMDB action. And this is basically responsibility and accountability of a configuration analyst. Execute the corrective action. It's informed to the owner, and then configuration analyst is basically responsible and accountable. Okay, so I think that this is basically the, a high level structure of how it's supposed to look like. And and the thing is that, so the RACI matrix that you see over here, it just helps you map roles and responsibilities, properly. It helps to clarify who's responsible for monitoring, and correcting, and just ensures overall quality. Who should be consulted on quality standards, who needs to be informed of quality issues. So I think that it's pretty important that these roles and responsibilities are laid out. you know so now let's go ahead and take a look at step number 3 in implementing this healthy CMDB. So design your CMDB data model. And as you can see over here, after you have set your direction and you have built your governance team and the governance model, the next step is to design the data model over here. And this is part of the configuration plan that you will be needing. So the data model ensures you only put data in the CMDB that supports your use case. And I can repeat that again. Because the thing is that you don't need to build a comprehensive CMDB all at once. You can basically define your use cases and then keep incrementing it. So start by defining the CI classes, attributes, and relationships needed for each use case. As you find more use cases, define what is needed for them. So to get quick value, use out-of-the-box CI classes. For example, to check if your hardware and software are up to date for security, start with firewall, server, and application CI classes. Finally, establish dependency relationships between them, between firewall, servers, and applications. So designing a CMDB data model involves structuring the database to accurately represent IT assets, services, and the relationships. Okay. To accurately represent the IT assets, services, and the relationships. A brief outline of typical CMDB data model involves, CI classes, attributes, relationships, hierarchical structure, life cycle states, audit and compliance, integration points, access points, documentation of data model, which includes even the schema, diagrams, and definitions. So it's easy to add data to the CMDB, but it's harder to maintain the model. All right. So some example of using out-of-the-box CI classes, for network devices, use CI classes like a router, switch, access point. With these you can monitor and manage the health and performance of your network infrastructure. Ensure that the firmware updates are applied and configurations are standardized. Wouldn't that be good? You can also map dependency relationships between them, and this is done by establishing relationships between, all of these hardware components, routers, switches, and access point to understand, network paths and potential point of failures. Similarly, do it for storage and for virtualization, for database management. So there's so many different use cases and user devices. Security management, and I can just be talking about it. Cloud services, if I didn't say that before. So there's like a whole different, use cases for doing it. And then also, let's not forget about CSDM. I'm not sure how many of you have already been following CSDM guidelines, but if CMDB is the database, then CSDM is the data model. CSDM guides us on where to record items in the CMDB. And this is normally another journey that you will need to embark on to make sure your CMDB is aligned with ServiceNow's vision. A lot of times, and especially in the past where there was not much awareness on CSDM, there would be just plain CMDB, and topping it up with the CSDM basically means that now you will have to go ahead and do a reboot, and align it with CSDM. Step number 4. So far we have discussed, 3 different, steps in having a healthy CMDB, which is set your direction, okay, what you want, build a team and governance model, and then design your CMDB data model, which was the third one. And now is where we basically going to talk about operationalize and maintaining your CMDB. Okay, so it's basically just manage and insight, right? So the thing is that, and when we're doing it at the highest level, we are focused on these, on these 3 customer pain points. Ingest. This is how the CMDB is populated and how data is identified and reconciled. Data management, which is getting the data, is just the beginning. and the more data that you have, the more interesting your CMDB becomes. So I think that, and then finally, insight is how do you visualize and use this data across the platform? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at that, and let's go ahead and talk about populating the CMDB. So let's try to understand what are the different ways that data can be ingested or populated into the CMDB. So I showed in this picture above, data. So you can have integration hub, you can have discovery, ITOM discovery, and service mapping. You can have service graph connectors. You can have third-party providers, like SCCM, which is a very, very, popular way of doing it. You can have agent client collectors, and you can import them, and import sets, and you can import them using just nothing but, nice and good Excel sheets. I've seen that happen a lot as well. So let's go ahead and talk about maintaining, available tools to maintain your CMDB. So maintaining the CMDB is an ongoing activity within an organization. You basically go ahead and set up your whole team, you populate it, you bring it to a certain accuracy level. It's never going to be excellent. I'm sorry if you chose that option. I have barely seen that happen. And of course, I mean, it's supposed to be excellent. It's supposed to be good. It's supposed to be functional, as long as there's proper maintenance on it. You have a team who's constantly, spending some time on a weekly basis resolving those issues, looking into it and then improving its health. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those tools that we have here. So CMDB Health Dashboard, and all these tools are built within ServiceNow. You probably might already be using a lot of these tools. So CMDB Health Dashboard and maintaining the CMDB, as I said, it's an ongoing, and CMDB Dashboard, is one of those very important tools. It's a graphical user interface, that provides real-time value of the status, health, and performance of configuration management. So let's go and review these tools. So here it is. And this dashboard is designed to help IT teams maintain the CMDB by offering insights and metrics that facilitate, effective management and governance of the CIs. And the key features of the CMDB dashboard is data quality metrics. You can, work on, it's going to show you completeness, correctness, and compliance. Okay. And as you can see over here, the overall health score that I have is 99%. Yes. So, and I can see the completeness, correctness, and compliance over here. Health and performance, it shows me the CI health and the service impact. It shows me incident and problem correlation as well, like incident trends, root cause analysis, and stuff like that. And then discovery and inventory, discovery status, and then the inventory summary, and then relationship mapping, like service, mappings and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next tool, which is IRE engine, Identification and Reconciliation Engine. And this engine, it's a pretty sophisticated mechanism designed to ensure the accuracy and consistency of the CMDB data. And the primary functions of the IRE are identification and reconciliation, as easy as that. So, the IRE, it uses like specific rules to determine if a CI already exists in the CMDB or not. And this is done by comparing, it compares the key attributes of incoming data with existing data. And if a match is found, the IRE identifies the CI uniquely to avoid duplicates. Okay, so in reconciliation as well, after identification, the reconciliation process decides which data sources are authoritative for particular attributes of the CI. So this makes sure that the most reliable and up-to-date information is maintained in the CMDB. The IRE provides, this tool provides several benefits: data accuracy, automated processes, improved data management. So overall, IRE is a pretty critical component in CMDB, helping, to maintain a single source of truth. Now let's go ahead and take a look at CMDB Data Foundation Dashboard. So it's going to require basically a plugin to go ahead and install CMDB and CSDM Data Foundation Dashboard. And the thing is that, and you can download that, right from the ServiceNow store, to your instance, and then just go ahead and get started with that. So, and this is broken into best practices, customizations, data management practices and ITSM processes, you know. And it's a great tool. Best practices look at whether hardware CIs have things like serial numbers or duplicate CIs being handled. Has a CI been updated within the last 90 days? Just to name a few over here. And the dashboard also shows priority and provides a remediation playbook. I can be talking about these dashboards, for a pretty long period of time. So so pretty crucial. They should be both the CMDB and CSDM dashboard should be reviewed regularly, and processes needs to be documented on who, how, and when the results are to be improved. And so the second one over here, which comes with the same plugin, is CSDM Data Foundation Dashboard. You know, so this is more focused on the CSDM. You know, and it's special, and it provides visibility into key indicators and helps optimize your CSDM setup. Let's go ahead and take a look at CMDB data certification. So this refers to the ongoing process of verifying, validating, and correcting data within the CMDB. So what's happening over here is that, so you need, if you have a purpose, you basically, the data in certification ensures that information in CMDB, remains accurate, and also it involves, and they're like scheduled and on-demand validation that you can go ahead and set up. Okay. And so there's a certain process and you can go ahead and follow the process, but you basically need this. It also comes with activation, but for regulatory or procedural reasons, the information in CMDB will require this checks for accuracy. Okay. And if you are one of those clients who basically have those compliances, then you probably might want to go ahead and look into this as well. And then CMDB workspace, and this is also a great tool, and it's a central hub for managing your configuration, management tasks. You can go ahead and search and explore. You can go ahead and, do health monitoring, and you can, it shows you the CI overviews. It has quick links. You can go ahead and take a look at your work over here, which is my work, insights. It has CMDB 360, which was formerly multi-source CMDB. You can analyze aggregate CI data from multiple sources over here. So it's got several different functionality, and you can dig into it, and it's going to help you. It's a pretty decent workspace here. And then CMDB Data Manager, which is basically another pretty decent tool. It's designed to help you manage the lifecycle of the CIs within your CMDB. And so it's got key features like policy-driven framework. So your CMDB allows data managers to create, publish, and manage policies that automate CI lifecycle. Okay, you can do bulk management, lifecycle operations, retirement, archival, deletions, attestations. So this brings in a lot of efficiency, scalability, and customization, to the process. And so by leveraging the data manager, you can ensure that your CMDB remains accurate, and basically, it's a policy-driven, framework that you are implementing over here. And let's go and talk about reporting. Okay, so now this is another of those pretty important things. Once the data is in the CMDB, how do you run reports on it to drive decisions? So you can leverage. It's got CMDB Query Builder, which is a drag and drop interface for creating complex queries. Every change in CMDB data is fully traceable and logged using reverse delta. So queries can be visualized in reports and posted in dashboards or scheduled to be sent via email. And when you need to understand relationships between a set of CIs and other data, such as changes, vulnerabilities and alerts, you can include any table in the query. So pretty strong tool over here. The last step over here. So after you are done basically setting your direction, implementing a governance team and a governance model, and then designing your CMDB data model, and then you are talked about operationalize and maintaining the CMDB. Now is the time where you are basically taking the CMDB and showcasing it to the other teams in your organization. So integrate the business process, specifically like asset management, incident management, problem management, information security into your CMDB. This makes it more valuable to your organization. For example, linking asset management to CMDB is going to help track resources efficiently, support cost management, and service delivery goals. Okay, so I think that this really brings in value and recognition from the whole company. So information security, incident management, and when you are doing that, the value that you show is that implementing this mapping aligns IT and business partners in tracing service issues, saving significant remediation time. It just makes it a lot faster. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at a couple case studies that AQL has, done CMDB optimization over here, and we do a lot of work on, maybe pharma, maybe manufacturing, maybe finance. So there's a lot of experience, in CMDB optimization and implementing might be ITOM, ITAM, APM, SPM, ITSM, employee workflows, customer workflows, financial workflows, a lot of them. And usually, when we work on these case studies, I'm sorry, usually, there's a team of around about 1 to 5 resources, depending on the size of the CMDB that you have, depending on the size of infrastructure that you have, depending on the service mappings that you are looking for, and usually these CIs might be anywhere between, hey, 600,000, CIs all the way to a few million CIs. So we step in, help identify the challenges, with your CMDB, set up a scope of work, and then from there we help, set a governance team, set up a configuration plan, set up an execution team, and finally a maintenance team to really make sure that you have a healthy CMDB. So AQL ensured the CMDB's integrity and reliability, enabling accurate tracking of configuration items throughout their lifecycle. And so reach out to us if you want to hear more case studies about this. Here's Steve Linker's email and account and phone number. So he is a dedicated ServiceNow account manager. And finally, a complete, compliant, and correct CMDB saves thousands of dollars for an organization. Thank you so much, guys, for attending this webinar, and have a great day.